Ryan Westbrook joins the show.
There you go.
What up?
What's happening?
Good to see you. Made the trek all the way from Brooklyn across the water.
Where he lives permanently. That's where his house is. That's where we now know he lives.
Inside joke.
Used to live in Philadelphia. So it's good to have
Here
you.
he played for the Eagles.
Yeah, that's the word on the street. A report came out yesterday, Brian, calling Phillies franchise quarterback Carson Wentz selfish and egotistical. Went on to say Carson Wentz's biggest enemy is Carson Wentz. This was from a couple of anonymous players interviewed on the Eagles team. Let's just say it made some non-anonymous players on the Eagles team a little upset. Lane Johnson came to the quarterback's defense, tweeting, "Whoever wrote that article needs to check their sources." Hashtag fake news. Carson has been and is our leader and our quarterback. Y'all know where to find me if you have any issues. Hashtag fly Eagles fly. And Fletcher Cox chimed in, reading through this Carson Wentz thing, and as a leader on this team, none of that is true. Carson is a great teammate and great player. We are all behind him 100%. He's our guy, and we'll come back and prove the world wrong. If you got a problem, feel free to at me. I will respond. All right, Brian, what is your reaction to what's going on with your former team in Philly?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about some of the best leaders, some of the best players in our league, you're talking about they have egos. Sometimes they push back against some of the things that the coaches are trying to get them to do. And
I thought that was one of my old coaches with a scouting report.
Yeah, that sounds like some of the best players that have ever played. You know, I think there's a lot of guys in the league that you can say these exact same things about. I think in this situation, it's weird because Nick Foles, not Carson Wentz, is a guy that led them to the Super Bowl. Nick Foles is totally different. He's a guy also that went into this team this year that wasn't in a playoff berth type of area and allowed them to win 6 out of the last 8 games and then make the playoffs and do a very good job in the playoffs, beating the Bears on the road in the first round. So it's a little bit different. I also think, you know, the one thing that bothered me about the story, the totally one thing, was that a veteran player went to him and that veteran player say he felt like Carson pushed him away. The veteran player was going to Carson to say, hey, maybe you should do things a little bit differently. Maybe you should look at it a different way. And the veteran player seemed like he was pushed away from Carson. Other than that, all these other things, all these other traits, these are some of the traits of the best players in our league. I don't have a problem with some of those other things.
Well, the thing that was more concerning to me than egotistical or selfish, like the character shots, because I think, listen, different people can think different things about somebody. It doesn't seem like that is the universal knock on Carson Wentz. In fact, the universal, the near universal opinion seems to be quite different. The thing that concerned me was that it was believed that once Frank Reich and John DeFilippo left the building and there was a bit of a leadership vacuum, that Carson Wentz seized upon that vacuum to what was described as almost bullying the new offensive coordinator Mike Groh into doing things his way. And the reason that could be problematic for the Philadelphia Eagles is, as I learned sitting across from Chris Carter the last 2 years, is no matter how great you are as a young player, there is so much football you don't know. That no matter how talented you are.
Player or broadcaster. Same thing.
Okay, appreciate that.
Yes.
But whatever it is, there's elements of the game that even if you are the most talented person in the room, that the most experienced person in the room can teach you. And if what we saw on the field then also went along with the fact that it looked like the Eagles ran one type of offense this year with Carson, and it was a Zach Ertz-centric offense, which I think is probably the source of some of the anonymous frustration. And then it became an equal opportunity offense the moment Nick Foles came in. So there are parts of this to go along with something Josina Anderson reported a couple months ago that I do find believable, that there's frustration in the locker room by some members, most notably of the receiving corps. Like Zach Ertz, really good player. Yeah. Is he good enough to be the most targeted tight end in the history of pro football? Like, is that too much? Or is when Carson out there, is it swaying too much to him and not enough the rest of us? And then the leadership part, that was concerning to me as well.
Yeah, this is where I am. And I know it's impossible for two quarterbacks. If you were playing a game and we could virtually put Nick Foles with the Eagles and put Carson on the Eagles, they call the same plays. Brian will tell you or validate my comments that the ball will go different places based on how he feels the game. Every player, especially quarterbacks, see the game different. That's why at the end of the week, the coordinator, the quarterback coach come to the quarterback and ask him, what are you comfortable with? Because we're going to major in the things that he's comfortable with. Carson Wentz is totally comfortable with things that Nick Foles, he's different. He has a different set of things that he's comfortable with. And why is that? Nick Foles has been a starter. He's also been benched. He's also had success. He's also had tremendous failure. Carson Wentz hasn't had that. He's had success, all right? And he's been injured. So how he views the game is totally different. Where he is from a mental makeup in his life is totally different than Nick Foles. Nick Foles, after almost quitting, I would say right now he's a better leader and support leader than at any other point in his career. And that's based on his success and also his failure. So I'm not going to bang on Carson Wentz because I can understand how, especially wide receivers, would draw the conclusion that, oh man, this guy's doing this because he's throwing to the tight end more. I have had other wide receivers or other players on the offense say things about the quarterback and his relationship with me, but it was based on the play caller. And most of those plays were designed to go to me.
Well, it's based on production as well. If they throw the ball to Chris Carter, guess what? He makes plays. He catches the football. Same type of thing for Zach Ertz. I think you had a great point, though, Nick. The offense ran much smoother, much more fluently with Nick Foles, who's spreading the ball around. That's something that Carson has to take from the veterans and say, hey, maybe things are better that way. Maybe I shouldn't target Zach Ertz so much. And I think it's been a little bit overblown as far as the amount of targets Zach Ertz gets between Carson playing quarterback and Nick Foles.
Is that for a veteran to walk up and say that to him, or is that for someone like Doug Peterson to sit him down and say, let's try to get through all your reads and go through your different
To me, either one. I mean, you should respect the veterans. When I was a veteran on the team, I went to Donovan.
Did you learn as much from the players as you did the coaches when you were playing? Because I think that that's an aspect that fans don't understand.
I love when guys in my same room, when LaShawn McCoy as a rookie came to me and said, Wes, maybe you should look at things this way. Maybe you should try on the outside zone, forcing it outside and then cut up. Different types of things. I respected that. He studied the game. He plays the game. There are a lot of coaches, you understand, there's a lot of coaches that never actually played the game. They know how to coach and they're great at coaching, but they can't speak the same type of thing that a player can. Sure. And that's a little bit different. And so if I'm Carson Wentz, I'm taking everything in that veteran players give me. Everything. And I may not do it exactly the way that they want to do it, but if they're giving me advice, they're doing it because they want this team to be successful as well as Carson Wentz.
There were a number of things that changed my career, but I had a personal conversation with two players, and it was more significant besides the off-the-field stuff. One had to do with Herschel Walker. He told me that I was not training hard enough to be one of the elite athletes in the world. And then the other one was Roger Craig, and he gave me Jerry Rice's regimen of what he went through and told me I will never be good enough because I don't work at it hard enough and I don't have a routine to be great at being a wide receiver. Those things changed my perspective coming from veteran players.
And Chris, doesn't it also say something as far as the players who we saw vocally immediately have Carson Wentz's back? Yes, it was Zach Ertz, but it was also Stefan Wisniewski, offensive lineman, Lane Johnson, offensive lineman, Fletcher Cox, D-tackle. And the reason those guys maybe aren't as involved in the politics of an equal opportunity, who's catching the ball in the locker room.
No, they have no clue where the ball is supposed to be going. All they know when the play is called is the snap count and the protection. So they have an honest opinion of what they think about the person and the dynamics in the room. But as far as, man, can we do other things when we have other quarterbacks in? That's a reality.
Yeah. They know one big thing. When Carson Wentz was healthy in 2017, 33 touchdowns. If he can return to healthy Carson Wentz, it's a different type of player underneath center.
All right, Brian, stick around. Coming up, did the Patriots win the AFC Championship before even leaving their hotel?